Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Joining me today is SAIF. He is a music artist hailing from Western Sydney and who is using his unique outlook as an immigrant youth to provide commentary on the many issues that plague modern urban Australia. Some of his recent singles like Cash Flow and Man focus on the grind to make a living as an artist and the personal challenges we all deal with secretly within our hearts. He has performed his music in front of audiences across Sydney, but his biggest achievement came at the Women's Basketball World Cup in 2022, when he performed at the Qudos Bank Arena in front of 30,000 people in attendance. SAIF was born in Bangladesh and spent a few of his early years in New Zealand before moving to Sydney. He has been active in the music scene for almost 8 years now, and as an ethnic artist continues to provide an alternative voice to the Australian music scene. I'll post a link to his Spotify page and all other social media in the description for this episode. As always, I thank you guys for your support. If you're new to the podcast, kindly consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed, please consider leaving us a comment or a like, because your engagement with my videos is the only thing that helps this channel grow. Also, if you have not done so already, kindly check out all of our social media platforms for our short form content. All of the highlights from this conversation and all of my past episodes are going to be up there, so kindly do check that out. But anyways, without further ado, this is my conversation with SAIF in the Gap. At the time of this recording, it's the 1st of June. T20 World Cup's officially kicking off today.
Yeah.
How's Bangladesh looking?
Pretty bad, to be honest. Yeah, like the first few games, I think we lost to America the first two games. Yeah, and the third game, they did a lot better. But it's been a kind of pattern of Bangladesh cricket over the last few years, even a decade, since Mashrafi left anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully we play better in the tournament. But I don't really have my hopes up.
USA were actually pretty surprising.
Yeah.
They played surprise. It's not that Bangladesh played bad cricket. It's just that USA played good cricket.
Right. Okay.
And that's actually good to see, especially in the associate nations.
Yeah.
With USA and Canada, and like it's a 20-team tournament this time around.
Yeah.
It feels good that a lot of the smaller teams are actually coming up, and with the format of T20, it's that anybody can beat anybody on a given day.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think I've been watching. I was following the World Cup, the associate. Not tryouts, but qualifiers for the World Cup, I think a few years ago. And I was watching that, and I was watching Zimbabwe play, and I think even Netherlands, Scotland. And as you said, it's really good to see more nations playing cricket and getting the opportunity to play at such a big stage. Like, for example, Uganda coming in this time. And I love to see America versus Canada. It's like Australia versus New Zealand game.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And it's great to see. I actually didn't watch the game. I just saw the results. So obviously the result shows different stories. But if they played good cricket, then good on them. And I think it's always good to see upcoming nations play good cricket. So it's good for the game.
Good for the game, exactly. And with T20, that's where the party is with cricket. So it's always good. It's always good. Nice. So with yourself, I see you play cricket a lot. What do you play? You're a batsman or are you a bowler? What do you play?
Yeah, we all say we're all rounders.
I can do everything.
I think when I first started playing, I was more of a bowler. But I've always had that kind of knack for batting, just kind of hitting the ball. So I was more of a pinch hitter when I first started playing, but then I started developing more of my skills. So now I bat more in the top order, and I bowl in swing. So it's medium pace, nothing quick, but on a good overcast day, hopefully I get a bit of swing. Yeah. So, but it's good, you know what I mean? So it's pretty much my first love. And I think it mostly is for a lot of boys from the subcontinent, you know what I mean? So
So do you play proper hardball cricket?
Yeah. So I was playing Sydney grade cricket a while back. So I played for Parramatta District, and I played for Western Suburbs as well. After that, at the moment, it's more of a Bengali competition that I've been playing over the last, I've been playing for a while now, but it's pretty much the dominant cricket that I play now. So it's pretty much every Sunday. The tournaments are held more in the west, inner west, Punch Bowl, also sometimes up in Crocombe Oval, which is up in Camden. So different communities playing different places. But it's been good. It just keeps you active and good to socialize with the community.
Keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously when you're always working or focused on like such a specific schedule. It kind of just breaks the pattern. So it's good to get a bit of sun and
right. So in between, like the cricket is obviously something you do for your leisure, right? So how much time do you think the music consumes out of your week?
That's changed a lot because I think when you're first starting off a craft, there's kind of like so much to learn, you know what I mean? And obviously you can always improve yourself and you can learn your craft. But I feel like the more experience you have and the more time you kind of dedicate to a craft, the more kind of niche the skill gets. So you're kind of more pivotal when you're kind of choosing what it is that you want to improve. So I feel like now, like the time isn't as much as I would spend when I was back, you know, kind of starting off, because now it's more kind of like, okay, I feel like there's a flaw in this part of my music or this part of my skill. How can I use my time to its best capability to enhance that part? So it's actually been a gradual decline in terms of time I've spent, but I feel like the quality of time I'm spending has
increased.
Better. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
like it's taking you lesser time to produce music, but the quality you think has gone above.
Yeah, and music's a funny thing, right? So when you're writing, like I don't feel like there's like a mechanic way in terms of actually writing music. Sometimes, you know, it takes a long time to create a song. Sometimes it's very easy. You can write it in a day. But in terms of spending time on music, I think where it varies is more kind of like what it is that your aim is. So for example, when you're starting off, it's more kind of just like you're just enjoying it as a hobby, or you're really enjoying the art itself. You're enjoying creating something. But as you kind of walk down the path, you start kind of refining things, and then you start thinking about marketing, or you start thinking about development of the song to production, or networking and things like that. So I think the time that you spend on the craft, it changes or varies from different areas. And I think that's why there's that fluctuation of like time, you know, but like it's been balanced. I think I used to spend a lot more time back in the day when I first started. Like I wouldn't even count the hours. I'm sure I've done more than 10,000 hours, right? Yeah. But now it's more kind of like it's refined. So it's like, okay, I'm getting a bit of feedback, and I'm listening to myself. I'm like, okay, So,
It's funny you mentioned the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what I'm following with the podcast. That once you spend 10,000 hours on it, then you can say that you have some kind of control over the entire thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you mentioned that sometimes you can get a song done in a day, and sometimes it takes you longer. So I had a question on that, just on the idea of creativity, right? Do you think creativity is something that comes from within, or do you think it's something that the universe gives to you at a certain moment?
I feel like, it's a very deep question. And I feel like, you know, something creativity, like it can't be kind of boxed. I feel like it's such a lucid thing. So I feel like it can come from internally and externally. Internally in the sense that, okay, maybe you've gone through a few things, or you're feeling a certain type of way over something that's happening externally, and that can arise internally. You can get some sort of inspiration or some emotions that evoke some sort of outlet. And that's what art is, you know what I mean? So I feel like that internally is one thing, and externally as well. I feel like, you know, we're human beings, we've got two eyes, everything's so visual, and, you know, we're kind of limited in that sense that sometimes whatever we see visually, we kind of take it for truth. But it can also kind of give you that external influence or that inspiration, like, hey, I've just seen something. Like, for example, a song, Bob Marley, The Three Little Birds, like Three Little Birds, like, he saw that, and that's external, but I'm sure there's a connection to how it made him feel. So I feel like it's a yin and yang, you know, like, there's no kind of answer for it.
I mean, I'm in kind of two minds about it, because especially, like, I'm specifically talking about like hip hop and R&B, right? You look at the mainstream, you've got people like Rihanna who've got hits like, you know, come on rude boy, hit it up. You know, stupid lyrics, stupid ass lyrics. But just because of the beat and the way it's produced, it goes on to become a hit. You know? But then you've also got people like, people writing some really deep and sensitive shit, like Kendrick Lamar, for example, you know, the stuff that he comes up with. So that is where my gripe is with art. Like, the mainstream is tilted in such a way that it demands you to be flashy. It demands you to be, you know, out there. It needs to be catchy, not necessarily substantiative. You know, but the true art of like lyricism is in the words that you're coming up with. You know, and like with your, I went through a few of your songs. I actually wish that there were lyrics up on Spotify, so I could actually break it down and you know.
That's a good point. I'll try and add that later.
Yeah, if you put up the lyrics, but Cashflow, for example.
Yeah,
I listened to Cashflow.
Okay,
and like that had some deeper thought behind it, behind what you wrote. So what do you think about that? That the mainstream wants you to be flashy, but at the same time, you need to be meaningful and insightful in something that is deeper.
Man, yeah, like it's a catch-22 because when you think like mainstream, like when I think of the word mainstream, I think like capitalism, I think commodity, I think like it's a business, you know what I mean? And I guess the music is an industry, right? So when you think about the population or like the majority of the population, it's more like we don't really want to think, we just like want to consume. It's consumption, you know what I mean? So music,
it's consumption driven.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. And that's why it's so easy music. Like people don't want to think, like, because thinking is difficult. Rather just be force-fed or spoon-fed or led like sheep in a way. And that's just the way we've been conditioned as a population. And it comes from media, it comes from TV, it comes from film, it can come from music as well. It's just like music's not really substantial, it's not really art, but it's easy to digest and it's easy to kind of have in the background while you're doing something. And and also it's kind of it's marketing as well in a way, because what are you talking about? You're talking about cars, you're talking about, you know, women, you're talking about monetary things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like 98% of the time, that is what they're talking about. So it's just flexing.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that's how art diversifies as well, because it's something meaningful and, you know, something great. But I feel like that there is that fine line, because when you think about, you know, musicians such as Tupac, or you think about Bob Marley, and you think about even Michael Jackson, right? Their message was very strong. It was very influenced by the people, and it was real things, but they've made it very big. And I think that's what probably makes someone great, is that the music obviously transcends time, and they're not really confined to either commercialism or art. They're above it. You know what I mean? So I think that should be the aim for artists as well, to kind of persevere through, you know, that channel. But it's difficult to do, because I feel like, you know, especially with this day and age, it comes with the image.
Yes.
It comes with what you're selling. Are you a product? Are you a brand?
Yes.
So yeah, you got to kind of think. You got to ask yourself the hard questions along your journey as well. You know?
Yeah.
So.
And how long? You also have to ask yourself, how long can I hold out on it? Because obviously you're doing something for some kind of monetary success, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that. You know? You want to do this so that you can sustain yourself.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But to sustain yourself, you have to align yourself with the mainstream a little bit. I guess it all comes down to understanding what you want your legacy to be. You know, legacy is a big part of it, especially in hip hop, because unlike pop music, unlike rock music, hip hop is something that is much more, I believe, deeply personal, coming from the artist, because of, again, the lyricism is how you pen it down, right? So it all depends on what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind, what kind of message do you want to leave. Do you want to be like most hip hop artists? Like, if you go back to it, like, they were revolutionaries.
Yeah.
You know, hip hop has always been associated with revolution. It has always been associated with challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
It has always been associated with speaking truth to power.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I guess that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for yourself, how? Okay, I have to take it back. I have to contextualize the whole journey for you to understand the artist that you are, right?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your background. Like, where you from? Born, raised, and everything?
Yeah, I was born in Dhaka in Bangladesh. Yeah. Spent like a very, very small time there. But I could read and write the language, but didn't have that much time there. You know what I mean? So I left when I was very young. I spent a bit of time in New Zealand, in Auckland. And that's where I pretty much learned English, for example. And it was the first time, just like a different country, you know what I mean? And then from there, I was like 5-6 years there. And then I was in Australia. But Sydney, I've been probably, I'd say 80% of my life I've been in Sydney.
Sure.
But the background is, so background is, New Zealand, Australia, but obviously, you know, I'm born in Bangladesh. So, just like always had that perspective of seeing that, of seeing kind of the images like in Bangladesh is so different to New Zealand and Australia. And I felt like that's kind of stayed with me. as I grew older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you identify more as? Do you identify more with, I mean, of course, there are bits and pieces to your personality from everywhere that you've been. You're Bangladeshi, you've been in New Zealand and 80% in Sydney. What do you feel is Australia the more dominant of those personalities?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? So, because I feel like people, like, for example, like me, like, I know that when I go to Bangladesh, they don't feel like I'm from Bangladesh. So it's kind of like, I don't really belong anywhere in a way, you know.
That is, like, I've said this so many times with so many people on the podcast, is that you're too foreign for here.
Yeah.
But you're too foreign for home.
Home, yeah, exactly.
So you're just kind of in between.
Yeah, just like in the
non-existent. And when you're here, you're trying to justify your place here.
Yeah.
But when you go back, you're trying to justify your place over there.
Yeah. It's a catch-22, you know what I mean?
That's it.
Yeah. But me, like, personally, I feel if someone asked me that question, like I'm Bengali, like I know I'm from Bengal, but like I'm from Sydney, you know what I mean? So like this is my city. So I know that I've got parts of Australian culture and Australian values and things like that in me. And also, I think about the ages of where I was. So, for example, 0 to 7 in Bangladesh, it was kind of like you kind of soak everything in. You can't really question things, but you see things. For example, you see a bit of poverty, where people are eating. Some people are on the street; they're not eating. You ask why? Why is it that I have food and this person next to me doesn't have food? You start asking yourself those economic questions. You don't even realize it's about economics or whatever, right? And New Zealand, it was very. It's a very friendly place, very green, and I'm so blessed to have spent, that pivotal ages of, I think, like 7 to 12 there, right? Because I did most of my primary school there, learned English there, made a lot of great friends. And I think one thing about New Zealand that I didn't see in Australia was that the indigenous culture, Maori culture, was heavily integrated in the school system. So they really teach you about all the stories. They'll teach you about what they've gone through. And it was very integrated in the school curriculum.
And I feel that with children, when you teach children these indigenous stories, they kind of hit a very specific chord with them at a younger age. And it's something that lasts with children a lot longer than anything else that you could teach them. Yeah,
because it kind of shows them a different perspective and makes them realize there's other parts or other people that may be different to you, but like we all still kind of share a sort of heritage, you know, and just kind of appreciation of something different.
Sure.
So I thought that was really amazing. And then, obviously Australia, like I've grown up here like 90% of my life. So, it's like I feel like I know I'm Bengali, but I'm from Sydney, you know. That's how I feel.
Tell me about home. What's the atmosphere at home? Is it still heavily Bengali? Like with most first generation immigrants, that is the way that you still get the vibes of Bengal. At home.
Like I think, like for example, on Sundays, back in New Zealand anyway, like mom and dad would always play like vinyl records, like Bengali vinyl records. So it'd always be playing in the house. You'd have like a lot of Bollywood films as well, like sometimes playing on like the Bengali nattoks, I think they call it. But it was and so that part was Bengali. They would speak in Bengali. Odd, right? Because like, for example, me and my siblings, we wouldn't actually respond in Bengali. We'd respond in English. And now when I look back, I feel like that's one of the regrets I have. I feel like that I wish that I kept that part of like my communication still open. Because I think when, as a kid anyway, like you come to a foreign land, you're trying to even learn a new language. And I think when you feel like you can't express yourself in a certain language, you kind of subconsciously start using a different one. So I know that in Bengali, what I really wanted to say, I couldn't express it.
You couldn't express it.
And that's what causes even the communication gap between different generations. So I think that's one regret I have in me, that I wish I kept with my mother tongue, learnt it more and used it more. I know there's obviously time now as well, but I can't get my time back, you know, so
And it's not just about you, like, obviously you're young, you don't understand the impact it will have on you growing up and, once you're an adult. But it's not just the language or the communication that suffers. It's also, if you know the language, it opens up a whole array of art and culture and literature to you. So if you knew Bengali fluently, you would be able to consume a lot more Bengali art. You would be able to consume a lot more Bengali literature, for example. And Bengal like I know this from history that Bengal has one of the most profound literatures in the entire subcontinent.
Yeah.
The Bengali people are some of the most learned people. Rabindranath Tagore.
Yeah, yeah.
Who else do you want to name?
Legend. Yeah.
Legend. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Bengal has this huge history of producing these amazing minds. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm struggling with my kids now.
Yeah.
Like my kids are young,
Yeah,
right?
right,
So I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and with the 4-year-old, I'm really making a point to try to communicate with her in Urdu as much as I can.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like in the same boat as you. Like I'm Punjabi.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
But my parents never spoke to me in Punjabi.
Right. They spoke in English.
They spoke in Urdu.
Oh, in Urdu. Right. Right. Yeah.
In Pakistan. Right?
Pakistan. Yeah. Yeah.
So and it was weird because my father always used to communicate with his siblings in Punjabi.
Right. Okay.
My grandparents used to communicate with each other in Punjabi, but somewhere along the way, I don't know if this was some kind of like state propaganda or whatever.
Right.
That's another conversation. But Punjabi or other regional languages were somehow, they were cast aside.
Right.
They were kind of let go, and Urdu was kind of imposed as a unifying language between all the people in Pakistan. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's fine. Like it unites everybody. Everywhere you go in Pakistan, everybody can more or less understand Urdu, right?
Yeah.
But what that did was that it shut off that part of the Punjabi language to me.
Right. I see.
And now I understand that there is so much of the Punjabi language. There is so much literature and so much art of it that I look at.
Yeah.
Like in Coke Studio, for example, in some of the old romances, Heer Ranja and Sassi Punnu and all that, right? So many things that I could have understood a lot more better if I knew the language.
Yeah, I see, yeah.
So that's one of the regrets that I have.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to do, at least with my kids in terms of Urdu, that now that they're here, they need to know at least a little bit of Urdu. They need to be able to read and write and appreciate it. So when they become adults, they can consume that.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. So thank you. Because I've never actually thought about how not knowing your mother tongue can limit you in that sense. It never has occurred to me, So yeah, that's a really deep point. I think that just kind of motivated me to start getting on it.
You could, and speaking in terms of like the stuff that you do with music and hip hop.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have you at all followed the music scene in Bangladesh?
I haven't, to be honest. Like I've got a few connections there, but like I know that hip hop is kind of picking up in Bangladesh at the moment. Yeah,
it's massively picking up. It's massively picking up in the subcontinent.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Right? I think there's been some movies on it from like Bollywood and stuff that's kind of even propelled it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I listen to Pakistani music all the time, right? So with Spotify, it keeps suggesting subcontinent music to me. So when I listen to Pakistani music, it also gives me Indian music. Obviously, it also gives me some Bangladeshi songs.
Yeah.
So randomly, like I'm at work, I've got my headphones on, and like I'm listening to music, and suddenly this Bengali music comes up.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't understand the language.
Yeah.
But the music.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like Bangla Coke Studio.
Yeah, that's really cool.
They're doing some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
There's I'll tell you the name of this band. It's Ikta band or something. This is this rock band from Dhaka.
From Dhaka, yeah. Rock music's been
it's so good
in Bangladesh. Yeah, it's been so good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like I wish that I could have understood that language, right?
Right. Yeah.
So like maybe that's something that you could look into because hip hop in Bangladesh and in the subcontinent as a whole, it's really picking up.
Yeah, it's picking up. Yeah, I've got like a connection with a few artists, and I've been seeing kind of like them doing their thing, and it's great to see, especially in the subcontinent, because there's so many people there as well. So having hip hop as a voice and as a music, that's kind of propelling. It's always a good thing,
For sure.
So that should be good.
And one really cool thing that some of the artists at least in Pakistan are doing some of the hip hop artists in Pakistan are doing. Because they rap primarily in Urdu or Punjabi, right? What they do is they take up these verses from really old literature.
Oh, right, okay.
From really old poets.
Yeah.
And they kind of inculcate it within their bars.
Right, okay, yeah. So, paying homage in a way.
They're paying homage to the literature and they're paying homage to the history.
Yeah.
But with that, they mix it up with their bars in such a way that you suddenly get such a profound lyric in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That it really hits you.
Right, okay.
And what I think that's doing is that is now exposing a whole new generation of people to the literature that would have otherwise been lost.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
You know, I find that amazing.
Yeah, and obviously it will inspire like some people to even look further and go back to that history.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's really cool that they're doing that, and like I think hip hop does that a lot as well with music. Like when they're sampling music, they take music from it could be the 60s or 50s and kind of bring it back in like a new age form, and then rappers are rapping over it. So it's crazy that they're also doing that with lyricism and poetry. Like that's a really cool thing, and it bridges the gap, from the gap between the older generations to the new.
Exactly.
And that knowledge does not get lost. So it's really good to hear.
Yeah. So do you identify yourself as a Western Sydney boy?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure?
Yeah.
You're all out Sydney West?
Yeah. Raised in Western Sydney. And just deeply connected with all the people here, all the the musicians doing their thing here, all the development kind of organizations that do their work here. So yeah, definitely represent Western Sydney.
So tell me something about growing up in Western Sydney. What was that like? Teenage in Western Sydney, because you would have been a teenager when you got here.
Yeah.
So teenager, your 20s. Yeah. Growing up in Western Sydney, what was that like?
Actually, when I first came to Australia, I was in Ashfield, and I was in Ashfield for about 5-6 years before I moved out west, right? To be honest, at the start, you don't really realize you're from Western Sydney. Like, I didn't realize there was like back in the day, there was a sort of like a stigma or some sort of people, they used to look at it. And then when I think back now, right, I remember when I was in Ashfield, I was telling my commerce teacher, oh, yeah, we're moving out to this place in the West. He's like, oh, the wild, wild West. And I didn't understand what he meant back then.
Yep.
And then, like, obviously now when I think about it, I'm like, oh, right, so that's what he meant. And I think you start obviously seeing a lot of different things in Western Sydney, like obviously the people who are there. There's all different sort of cultures. And I think when I first went there, like, you've seen it develop a lot over the last 10, 20 years, right?
For sure.
And you've seen more influx of different people coming in, a lot more different, even food vendors. So you have like different cuisines and things like that. So I think culturally it's becoming more of a melting pot.
It is.
And even like the music that's coming out of Western Sydney, it's so kind of powerful and it's ethnic and you can't replicate it. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
But yeah, growing up there, man, like, to be honest, I never realized that, like, I was growing up in a certain place that people viewed in a way. I was always kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I was so detached or absorbed with whatever's going on in my mind. I never really thought about it, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was cool. Sometimes, like, you do obviously come into some situations where you're just like, oh, hey, what's happening there? So you've had instances of racism and things like that, but, you'll probably get that anywhere, so, yeah.
So growing up as an ethnic child, growing up as an ethnic teenager in Sydney, how much of those experiences, especially those adverse experiences that you would have found, how much of that fed into the music that eventually became SAIF music?
I think it's probably been more over the last few years. I think especially after COVID as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things after COVID, when I realized the way the kind of police were targeting areas in Western Sydney a lot more than what they're doing, for example, in the East, that kind of struck a chord with me. And I think also when I started more identifying about where I was from, and kind of when it became a segregation, like, oh yeah, you're from Western Sydney, or you're from this. Prior to that COVID scene and things like that, I never really identified as, like, I knew I was from there, but I didn't realize it was something to kind of speak about in a way, because people would probably never ever say it to your face, oh, you're from Western Sydney, you must be this or that. But I think it was more about kind of fighting those prejudices or fighting that image that people want to try to portray. And I think what really hit me in the chord was more kind of like when I saw that COVID situation and I felt like that was a bit unjust. Or maybe not, even if not unjust, it was heavily, I felt like a lot
stigmatized.
Of stigmatized as well, and like the way they're kind of thinking. And that's what made me feel like, hey, I really need to be more identified with my people and my area, and rep it as well in my music, and be proud of the parts of Sydney that I'm from, So
ever since you started doing that, how's the feedback been on the music? Do you think the feedback's been better?
It's an interesting question. I don't know, to be honest. Like, in terms of the music, I feel like I've definitely improved a lot in terms of my quality, because I put so much time into the craft, and when I'm getting certain feedback from, things I'm trying to make, and I'm getting the criticism in a way, or constructive criticism,
Yeah.
I really think about it. And I feel like if it applies, then I'll try and kind of take that into my music. And I feel like, which I have. But in terms of the Western Sydney aspect in itself, I feel like that is just like, it's a foundation of the music. So I don't know if there's a metric for me to be like, oh,
Yeah.
has this gone better or
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
But it's just become kind of more identified, or more in terms of my branding.
Yeah, I get you.
I'm more aware that I am from there, and
You
I'll
incorporate that into the music.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Because I asked this because anytime I listen to maybe some track from Pakistan, anytime Karachi is mentioned, I'm like, that's the city. That's my city.
Because I feel like then people will identify a lot more, or like, oh, he's from there.
You own it.
Yeah.
You own it, right? There's an ownership to it.
Yeah. Now I feel that, man. Yeah, for sure.
Last night when I was preparing for this conversation, right, I did a bit of research. I read into a couple of articles that you've already done, right? So one thing that stood out to me was you mentioned that there were some darker parts of your past that eventually led you to jumping into music.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions related to that. That A, why music more than anything else, right? Why music? Why was music that outlet for you? And B, once you've said your piece, once you've gotten it all out, whatever you wanted, what's the direction now for the music?
Cool.
Yeah.
I think growing up, man, like, I've always appreciated music. So growing up, I'd listen to a lot of Eminem. I listened to Tupac. I loved a lot of rock music as well.
Yeah.
And I think in growing up, my favorite classes were English and economics, right? English is, I love to write. I was always a writer.
Yep.
And, when you're growing up at that age, you don't see other people who look like you rapping, or you don't see yourself, like, you don't have that kind of platform. And coming from like South Asian background, it's not really kind of, it's not kind of pushed like, go and do music or go and do this and that, right? So I've always obviously played cricket because I was safe, and I love cricket, right? And that's my sport outlet. But in the behind the doors, I was always writing. I was always into poetry. I was into Shakespeare. You know what I mean? I was always into that art form and reading and things like that.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that music was kind of like a love of mine. And when I was going through, whatever that negativity things, and I had to kind of push it out, it kind of automatically put me in a place where, like, I felt like I was at such a place that external validation I didn't really require it. It's kind of like, I think if you're in a good, comfortable area, or if you're in a place where things are kind of going well for you, and you want to do something outside the box, there's a lot more social stigma, or there's a lot more kind of like, oh, what will this person think if I do this, or how will I come across? Funnily enough, I was in a place that I couldn't even care anymore, because I felt like I was such a dark place that if I even took the plunge, and even people said that, oh, it sucks, or who are you, it wouldn't matter to me, because I was already trying to come back up. So so I used music as a channel, because I knew how to write. I was always a writer. And I kind of just wrote my piece, you know what I mean? And what I realized over those 4 or 5 years when I was writing that type of music, that a lot of people were resonating with it. And I think I'm one of those personalities that when I do something, I want to make sure that I progress, and I do better, and I improve whatever I'm doing as I progress. I'm not a person who likes being stagnant, right? So I think after those 5 years, when I realized that people were resonating with it, and I felt like that negative feelings came out of my heart or my mind, and I was more in a comfortable place, and I started reading different things, and I started being around different environments, different people, inspired me to kind of take the next step, because I was a bit stuck. I'm like, okay, I've identified with all that, but where do I see myself now? And I think putting that question right now, it's more kind of like, I want to inspire people. I want to write about what's going on in the world. I want to write about Bengal, the history of it, because a lot of people wouldn't even know about that, and still at the same time keep true to myself and still write what I think, you know what I mean? And I think that's similar to anyone who's an artist who's kind of growing up. Like, you'll see your music or your craft change as you get older, or as you go through different experiences. It's a reflection of who you are. So I think that's what it is now. I just want to kind of motivate, and I want to give back to my community, whether that means in Western Sydney, or if that means in Bangladesh. And I'm all about inspiration and growth and self-development.
I think that's a fair point. Like that's a very good point. That your craft matures as you mature
Yeah.
as a person, right?
Yeah,
Fair
'cause-
enough.
yeah. Because I feel like even if I try and write something, you know, what I wrote when I first started, when I worked on like Blue City, which was one of my first albums, like I couldn't because I'm not at that place right now.
And you're not
I
that person anymore.
Not that person. Yeah. That's another big thing. Yeah, because people change, you know.
Yeah.
And how you change it depends, I think, on how the people you're around, the things you read,
Yeah.
and the self-belief that comes in. And,
Yeah.
seeing results and things like that. And so, or sometimes not seeing results.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So I'll ask you as a
Yeah.
follow-up to that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll ask you a very poignant question.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
What do you mean by happy? Because
I don't know. You tell me.
You tell me. Okay.
You tell me.
See, I never really identified over the last few with being like happy or being sad or anything like that. I take life from and maybe it's from like a Sufi teachings or even like Rumi and things like that, or even Stoicism. Like, to me, things aren't good or bad. It's just like, it's what it is in the sense that you get something and you figure out how to bounce from it. So if something good happens, I'm composed. Something bad happens, I'm composed and being patient. That could be even like an Islamic teaching. I don't know, but I feel like I'm content.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say like I'm happy or I'm sad. I feel blessed. You know what I mean? I'm blessed for what I've been given.
Yes.
Do I want to do more? Do I want to impact more? Yeah, for sure. But happy or sad, I feel like it's a very trivial feelings in the sense that you can be happy for a few minutes and then that happiness can go. Similar to sadness, you can be sad for a moment and there's always a bigger picture.
Okay.
And it's easy to fall in the trap like, oh man, I released this music, I wish it was going to get this many streams.
Yes.
And you're like, oh damn. So there is that kind of short-term
Yeah.
feeling as a human being you'll get. But I think when you come back to your balance, it's a bigger picture, and I try to stay composed and try to stay patient and try to be grateful for where I'm at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Harder to do than say. Yeah. So yeah.
No, I like that you pointed out stoicism in there. That you take things the way they are.
Yeah.
Because events are just events.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah. You put that label.
You put that label. To it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reaction that you then give to those things, that is then again completely based on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lesson you have to learn as you grow older. Like sometimes I know, especially in my previous, like when I was younger, like I would kind of, things that are happening to me or things that are kind of occurring, I'd be like, oh, why is this happening? Or I'm so sad, I can't do this and do that.
Yeah.
But it's a learning process. It's a learning development. Some people learn it a lot younger. Some people learn it older. But I feel like we all have our journeys and it's all kind of like, it's done in that purpose that you'll learn it when it's the right time for you. So, yeah, man, like,
Do you think, like, does faith play a big part in your life?
Yeah.
Does it?
Sure, yeah. I've always had faith in like a higher being, I think since I was young. I wouldn't say that I followed like a religious doctrine or anything like that in the sense that obviously I grew up in an Islamic household. So, I would say my parents were fairly religious, not kind of overbearing in the sense to telling me kind of do this or do that, but they would encourage it. And I feel like, you know, being in a certain way or a certain faith, especially in the West, is very difficult, especially growing up here because the environment and the people around you are different to you.
Yeah.
And sometimes if your thinking or point of view is different or you're doing something without knowing why you're doing it, you can be questioned and then you'll be like, oh, I don't know, it just is what it is. So I feel like that as I grew older, I reconnected a lot more about my faith and my culture as well. So my history of Bengal, or as a Bengali, who I am, what my ancestors were. So yeah, that's definitely grounded me. But you know, it's one of those things. I feel like the faith is, it's either faith or fear. You know what I mean? So they're both. You can't see it, but it's how the sail is of you as a human being. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to be fearful? Do you want to have faith? And it's not really right or wrong answer. It just depends on what works for you, you know, and where you are at in your own journey. So yeah, man, faith's definitely played a big part, and it was there, it left, it came back. So it was one of those switches. Yeah. So
I can relate to that. I can relate to that because personally, what I found is that being born in a religious family or like in a religious country, you can obviously relate to that, right? There's a lot of things that get passed down to you as heritage.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of things that you need to figure out for yourself.
Yeah.
and the overlap between doctrine and faith, it kind of gets blurry.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
It
and
does.
that's where that comes in. Like once growing up, when I felt that religion was starting to become more of like a dogma, that's when you don't, it doesn't feel appealing to you anymore.
Yeah,
That's when you kind of start losing faith,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
But then part of growing up, I felt, was also rediscovering that hey, there's so much more to faith than what was being presented to you,
yeah. And what's been told.
what's being told to
Yeah.
you.
And also, what's culturally meshed. There's a
Yes,
big,
yeah, that's a big part. That's a
Yeah.
big part because especially with Muslim faith,
Yeah,
people in the subcontinent tend to get so confused
yeah.
about the Islamic faith because they intertwine the subcontinental culture
Culture as well.
with
yeah.
the faith,
Yeah, yeah.
and that kind of becomes its own thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a different
It's
kind of, yeah.
it's a different kind of thing
Yeah.
on its own.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And I think, as you're right, it's rediscovering is
Yes.
another part of it. And I think, I feel like, to me personally, like spiritualism or like, it's very important to me in a way, because I feel like that for me, I just need to believe there's something greater than
myself. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be kind of a machine or a slave to whatever my desires are, or
Yes.
whatever I'm being told to do by
Yes.
society.
Yes.
And I feel like one of the biggest gifts of the human beings is our intellect.
Yes.
And you have to harness that, and you have to think. And that's why I believe in critical thinking so much, because and I think that in one way also kind of pushed away my faith in a way, because when you're questioning things that you see in a cultural basis that gets intertwined, or as you said, dogma, you know what I mean? I felt like that kind of insults your intelligence in a way, and it makes you feel like a sheep, where I feel like that's not what faith is. Faith is about the feeling of expression, freedom, oneness, and taking people as they are, and it's about love, you know what I mean? So I think when those core aspects get challenged, I question the idea, or I question the thinking. Yeah.
You know, there's like we hear this a lot, that people who convert have a lot stronger faith than people who are born with it.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot.
Yeah, a lot,
and I feel that is actually because they critically think about what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Whereas we're just born into it.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that is the process that, and I encourage like all young people growing up in any kind of religious household, is that if you really want to discover truth, I'm not saying absolute truth, but if you really want to discover what faith is, try to push everything away.
Yeah.
And let go of all of your biases, all of the dogmas, everything, and then try to see what comes back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because whatever comes back, inherently, that is what truth has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And yeah, you're right, because I've had friends who've kind of like, converted and things like that, and they're a lot more practicing, you know, in a way, in a sense. And like, I think it's because, obviously when you're force-fed something, or not even force-fed, when you're kind of just told to be a certain way, it kind of just, you start becoming a robot, and you start doing things without even questioning it.
Without questioning it,
And I think that's why a lot of people lose faith, and then they rediscover it because they're thinking back for themselves, or they go down a different line. But and I think that's a personal journey that everybody has to take, and whatever works for them. But I feel like when you talk about religion, I feel like all of it is just pretty much just that it's about loving another human being, and not judging someone based on their religion, their age, their gender, etc. You know what I mean, or their culture, or their background. It's just about appreciating that we have differences, and respecting that.
Yes.
To me, that's what religion teaches me.
Pluralism.
Yeah.
Of course.
But it's I think like it makes such good sense in theory, but in practicality, there's so many other factors, so much other variables that human beings go through, and it just kind of disrupts that harmony.
That's the problem with religion, right? Because religion, in any religion, is inherently idealism.
Yeah.
But humans are not ideal.
Ideal, yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
We always fall short. And that's true for all religions.
Yeah.
Everybody falls short.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
I think that we're going down a completely different path. I'll pull us back.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in terms of the journey, right? Tell me, has a moment occurred to you that has made you feel that, okay, I've arrived, that okay, this is something I wanted to do, and like I'm in it.
Yeah, man, for sure. I think probably over the last few years, like I think when I kind of performed at Qudos Bank, like I felt like that was like the cake after working so hard for so long with pretty much like no support and recognition or whatever. And now like I feel like I'm so aware like of what my music is about and who I am, because I've done that work in terms of really asking myself those difficult questions, and having that much experience behind me, and still having that kind of hunger inside to deliver a message.
Yes.
I feel like that this was definitely the right choice that I made. And not just from like, you know, a sense of doing music, but actually like it's helped me so much in terms of my growth, or it helped me be in social settings where I would learn from other people, and just meeting different people from different arts like dance or music and film, and you know what I mean, like even podcasts right now, radio. I never saw myself as someone like that, because if I think back, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, like the boy who first started music was so different to like the man like I am today.
You are now.
And I feel like that's a big asset in itself. And we do tend to forget it sometimes, because it's like, oh, you want a result like off like metrics sometimes, because we judge ourselves by metrics sometimes of the monetary things, which is great. But I feel like, you know, if I can't make any music tomorrow, I'd be like, okay, the chance that I've had, I'm glad I took it, and I take it 100 times out of 100, regardless of, you know, what I went through. So yeah, I feel like it goes back to that word, like I'm content, but I still want to make an impact. I still have hunger in me. I still have a vision. So yeah, I think, I don't know if that answers the question.
So what was Qudos Bank like? Like just put me in that situation. I want to understand this. Okay, you're at Qudos Bank. Center stage. There are like 30,000 people in the stands. And you have to go out and perform. What, like, how did you not shit your pants?
I did. It was surreal. It was surreal, man. Like, because prior to that, the most people I probably performed to was probably like maybe 100, you know, 120, something like that. But what happened that day was, so I was going to perform for Australia versus China at halftime, right? So I was meant to perform at night, and there was another game, Puerto Rico versus Puerto Rico versus another team. I think maybe Canada or something. So that was in the afternoon. So I went into the afternoon. There's not many people there. There's probably maybe about, like maybe 50, 100 just watching from this. So it's very empty, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. This should be nothing. It's easy as usual. So I'm going around, you know, Sydney Olympic Park. I'm, you know, drinking water, and I'm like getting some food, just chilling. A few of my friends came. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go to the green room now and just prepare for the song, right? And then, so I'm in the green room, and all of a sudden, like after half an hour with them, I hear like a lot of footsteps, and then boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, well, what the hell's going on here? I walk out, and it's pretty much probably the first, not the first, because in basketball, there's 4 quarters, right? So after like the first quarter, I just go out quickly, and I see it's pretty much pitch black, and there's so many people everywhere. I'm like, whoa, what the hell? I did not expect this. Quickly walk back into the green room, and I'm just kind of walking back and forth, and I'm just like, because I've practiced my lyric. It's only one song, right? I practiced the song so much, but I'm like, oh, hope I don't forget. So I'm panicking, right? And then I'm like, okay, compose. And then I was like, okay, look, this is one of those moments. I've worked so hard in this music career over the last, you know, however number of years, put in so much time, so many failures, so much like rejections, no, this and that, so much time. And I'm like, if this goes well, like this is a gift for me. I need to take it. And all my hardship I've gone through, this is the gift. You know what I mean? So I put myself in that sort of mind frame. And when I walked out, when they called SAIF, and I was just sent to stage, and I'm just like, it's like something else kind of took over me. I felt like it was an out of body experience. And I felt like, you know, the spotlight was just like on me. It just felt like a warm glow. And it just, honestly, it felt like the whole journey I've gone through so far, it's just like, it was pretty much my foundation of what I was standing on. And I just delivered the song, and it's one of these profound experiences in my life. And you know, I'm blessed, and I'm grateful I got the opportunity. And man, like, it was surreal.
Do you also feel like back when I was in uni, I used to perform on stage, right?
Cool,
so I've had the spotlight on.
What did you perform? Like
just play.
Oh, play. Okay.
Like I used to act.
Oh, cool.
In uni, right?
Nice.
Like nothing serious, very just very mediocre stuff. But I used to perform. But what I found about the spotlight was, one of the best things about the spotlight is it blinds you. Have you felt that?
Yeah.
Because you might have those jitters, or you might be worried walking out there. But once the spotlight is on you, the light is all you can see. and you can't see it. Like, you might as well be performing to an empty arena.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And for me, like you said, out of body experience,
Yeah.
it kind of helps. Like, when the spotlight is on you, you feel like, okay, this is my space.
Yeah.
This is for me to perform my craft, and whoever is seeing,
Yeah.
they are only experiencing they are only experiencing the execution
Yeah.
of what I have been building up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
I feel that, man. Yeah.
I think that's one of the best things about the spotlight. Like,
Yeah.
you might as well be performing Qudos Bank Arena, you might as
Yeah.
well be performing in a small auditorium.
Yeah.
But the feeling is the same.
Yeah. I agree. Because you don't see anything. It's
You don't
just
see
like
anything.
you and the craft, and
Yes.
you're in your own space. You're giving out.
You're giving out.
Yeah.
And whatever reaction or feedback you get from it, that is God's honest truth of what, like of how good it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, for sure. I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
I feel that's something really beautiful about. I think that is why we performative art. I think that's why we do it.
Yeah. Is that,
You know, I've had this
out-of-body
conversation
feel,
with somebody else before as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even about money or fame or anything. It's just about the kick you get out of doing
Yeah.
it.
The self-expression.
The self-expression, or
Yeah.
even the high you get out of it.
Yeah.
It's just that.
Yeah.
You know, the out of body experience it's addictive.
Yeah. I feel you, man.
The stage is addictive, man.
Yeah. It's a drug. It definitely is a drug.
It is.
Man. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I really feel it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, pulling back. So, cash flow's out. It's been out for a couple of months now. I've heard it. Really, it's doing really well.
Yeah.
Like for only 2 months, it's
Yeah.
already got like 50,000 plays on Spotify.
Thank you.
So it's doing really well. I think a music video for that's coming out as well.
No, so we did a bit of just like content, like small 3 pieces of content.
Like reels.
Yeah, like reels in the music, because like we're trying to kind of push more content out on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I think especially now, like it's more value out of instead of like a long video clip right now. I feel like that you break down the song into 3 different segments and kind of portray it ways that it probably wouldn't be portrayed when you just got the audio.
Sure.
So I try to have like a bit of fun with it and just try to kind of really capture about what the song's about. So just kind of following that formula right now, and just kind of give a different angle to the music. But yeah, it's been good. You know?
Have you been working on any other stuff lately?
Yeah. So I have a new song coming out tomorrow, right? It's called Man.
It's coming out tomorrow.
It's coming out tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it'll already be out by the time this podcast comes out. So go to Spotify and search for Men. Saif's Spotify link will be in the description for this podcast. I'll also be putting it up on the screen right now. So do go check it out.
Cheers. So I'm excited for that to come out. But yeah, I've got a lot of music I'm currently working on. It's just kind of, getting the right people involved, and then just getting the studio and just making sure that, it's the quality that I want before I release it. So, but I'm looking for the release tomorrow. Hopefully a lot of people will resonate and just feel the message.
What's that one about?
So this song, it's pretty much about, I think it's like different segments. So a bit of it is just kind of just me rapping, bravado. A lot of it is about kind of the way the policing is done in Western Sydney.
Okay.
A lot of it is about kind of just my background, where I grew up. So it's got little segments of different parts. But, I think like the first line is pretty much like, I can't look back. You know what I mean? So what's done is done. I can't look back. And I think when I wrote that lyric, it kind of built the foundation for the rest of the song. I talked a bit about that. So check it out tomorrow. See how you feel.
Yeah, for sure. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you produce the music on this by yourself, or do you work with music producers?
Yeah, I work with music producers. So on the beat for Man, it's producers called Beats with Chef.
Okay.
So I've been working with them for the last 1 to 2 years.
Yep.
Great people, and great environment. Just working with such like minds, and it makes my job a lot easier as well. Just having those sort of highly skilled people and artistic people, because they're artists themselves as well, to help hone the craft. But other than that, I do work with kind of different producers across like different countries. Like I've worked with a guy called Vibration Beats, and he's from Miami, but his background is Vietnamese. So you'd never I never thought I'd be working with like a Vietnamese guy in California, in Miami. So that's pretty cool as well. And like anytime I kind of hear different beats that really resonate, I'll kind of reach out. But I try to focus more on rap delivery and things like that. Leave the music for like the people who.
The thing I love about this day and age is, especially with Spotify and stuff, is that
you can discover so much great music out there from so many different parts of the world that you didn't even think about. Places that you didn't even know existed. And such amazing music's coming out, and especially with music producers, like you could be collaborating on a track sitting in Sydney with somebody who's maybe living in Canada or Europe or somewhere. You know, it's amazing.
I think that's pretty cool because they've got the Spotify radio option as well. When you like a song, put it on radio, you have all these other songs that sound similar. So I think that's pretty cool as well. You're ready to discover new music.
Amazing. So I'll definitely be posting Saif's profile, his Spotify profile, and his. Are you on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube as well.
So his YouTube as well. It'll be in the description for this podcast. Do check that out. I think his work is amazing. I personally really enjoyed Cashflow. I'm looking forward to Men as well.
Thank you.
Check that out. So before I let you go, there's one question that I always pose to all of my guests, and for you being an artist, I think it would be a more profound question. And you know, you could answer it on a much deeper level, I guess. Is that based on all of your experiences, right? So the heritage that you bring from being from Bangladesh and then New Zealand and living and growing up in Western Sydney, going through some dark times that fueled into your music, going through a 10-year music journey, struggling, not knowing where it's going, and then having the ability to perform at Qudos Bank Arena of all places, you know. So based on all of that, Saif, if I ask you what is one nugget of truth that life has taught you that you can pass on to people?
I feel like it's honestly, it's persistence. It's you have to just keep going. Regardless, if you have a vision and if you have an ultimate goal, and if that ultimate goal or vision is bigger than yourself and you want to impact people in a positive way and leave something better than it came, I think that's the number one thing first, is that identify what your vision is and identify and be aware of your history, of your culture. And thirdly, I think take the good and the bad together and know that whatever the outcome that you're getting at that present time, it all links back to the bigger purpose. So be clear on your big purpose, on what it is that you really want to do, what it is that you're trying to achieve, what are you trying to do for people, what are you trying to do for yourself. And after you ask yourself those questions, let it be your foundation, and everything else is pretty much just a vehicle to get there. So I think that's what I would say. It's just like persistence.
Persistence is key. Beautiful point to leave the audience on. If you guys enjoyed the podcast, do give us a like, leave us a comment, follow Saif on all of his platforms. Like I said, I'll share it in the description for this video. Also, if you have not done so already, here are all of our social media platforms. All the highlights from this conversation and all of my past conversations are going to be up there, so do check that out. Until next time, you've been listening to In The Gap. I'm Hussain, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.